For those that are technical and they want to really see like, hey, Kyle, I appreciate your quick overview, but what the heck is this product really doing? The best way, once again, for me to do it is to show you. So a good way to be able to do this here is if you take a look, I really want to show you that we're looking at what's called persistence. That's really the key to what Huntress is doing. And I mentioned earlier that our whole job at NSA was long-term persistent access, and establishing those footholds, maintaining access into a network for long periods of time. But you might not actually know, like, how the heck does that actually happen? So if you take a look here at this slide, right, we've got Windows 95, right? So for some of us that are crusty like me, we've been around forever, you could remember that Windows 95, when you logged into Windows 95, MSN Messenger started running. That's just how it worked. And if you think about here in 2019, applications like Skype, that would automatically start at runtime. Well, it turns out hackers use those same exact run keys still here in 2019 to automatically launch their malware or their remote access tools, as you see here. And sadly, at Huntress, we find several hundred incidents per day still using this run key, even though it's like 20 plus years old. And you could head on out. If you take a look, these screenshots are actually straight from our Twitter feed. And we actually show you the same incidents that we discover every day to our clients. So another way hackers will maintain a persistent foothold here is the old startup directory. Any item you put inside a Windows startup directory, whether it's a shortcut, maybe it's the actual application themselves, it's going to automatically run when that user logs in. Well, that's perfect for, like, for instance, the pneumocode malware. It actually uses a JavaScript dropper, and it's all kinds of obfuscated to be able to slip by your antivirus, and that behavior doesn't get caught. However, we look at a completely different piece of metadata, this persistence, and this type of shenanigans of making these obfuscated persistence mechanisms stand out like a sore thumb. A great way to be able to call that out here is scheduled tasks. We see these things all the time, and I'll tell you a story about how we recently discovered a scheduled task that kind of disrupted the IT market for about 2 months last year. This specifically was a PowerShell payload that was exploited an RMM product. And the attackers used it to install CryptoCoin miner. So thankfully it wasn't the end of days, but if somebody has the ability to install a CryptoCoin miner, they could have put something more nefarious. For instance, something to steal your data or maybe even ransom your data. And in this case, they actually used a scheduled task. With this said, these hackers got in and they actually exploited this flaw in the RMM. And we all of a sudden noticed that we had tens of thousands of computers all of a sudden with an odd scheduled task, using PowerShell, downloading a file from Dropbox. And as we dug into it a little bit more, we actually discovered this was a hacker that had a 0-day for the RMM and used the 0-day to attack anybody that was publicly facing on the internet and install this actual, malware or ransomware and CryptoCoin miners. So it was kind of a huge win for Huntress that even though all these customers and all these products had great preventative security products, that was a good example of a attacker using a 0-day, plus kind of living off the land or using that fileless malware attacks and abusing the legitimate PowerShell application, which we all use for, automation as system administrators, to be able to actually affect these clients in a negative way. A better way to show this here is this is actually some of our raw data. And if you take a look at that top task file line, you could see somebody created a scheduled task called dupdatezone domain. And this is just something random. Right? Huntress doesn't know, was this some like custom system administrator scheduled task actually found in the wild? Or was this something more nefarious? And if you take a look at the command here, you see mshta.exe was used as the command to run. Well, for those that don't know, that's the built-in Microsoft HTML application host. And it's used for rendering HTML applications. It can also run all kinds of fancy things like JScript or VBScript and be used to call and run extra commands. Specifically in this case, if you take a look under the arguments window, when you look at this, you kind of don't have to be a security rock star to see that something's already weird going on, right? We've got this scheduled task we've never seen before. It's calling the legitimate digitally signed Microsoft HTML application host, but now it's instantiating a VB scripting engine, and it's creating this object to run command.exe, the legitimate command prompt in Windows. And then they use the /c argument to be able to run PowerShell. And if you notice, PowerShell once again then calls another command, which we can actually see IEX means invoke expression. And if you take a look that expression that it's invoking, it's actually causing, this PowerShell to download all the data from Bitly, which is a redirected URL. You know, that's one of those URL shorteners to kind of get around some of the, you know, what domain it connects to first there and that heuristic. And it actually executes this all straight in memory, not having to bring any additional malware files along with it. So that's a great example of these living off the land attacks that we see every day here at Huntress, and how looking at this from persistence is a much different way than looking at it at like application behavior or runtime behavior like most next generation antivirus products do. Hackers are so, you know, kind of in your face nowadays and so egregious that they believe in going to the extreme for finding some of their, you know, footholds. Sometimes they use multiple of them, like in this case. So in this next portion of the actual video, I'm going to show you a family of malware. It's called Kufner. It's one of my favorites. And I'm going to actually show you on how these hackers maintain their foothold and how we actually discover these with the Huntress product.